All right, welcome back to College Football Addiction. We're going to switch things up just a little bit and talk hoops. Drew, how you doing, man? It's been a little while.
Yeah, it has been, TJ. We're busy over here at ESPN 97.7 The Zone in Huntsville. Actually, in some ways, with this SEC basketball season, with Alabama and Auburn being so good, we're as busy as we've ever been. I mean, certainly we don't have football going on. We're very busy during high school football season, college football. We're doing a lot now with UAH, University of Alabama Huntsville, baseball, softball. It's been busy. We've had Alabama and Auburn baseball here in town in the Rocket City over the last month. So we're staying, very, very busy. That's a good thing, though. Spring football is now intertwined. It's changed so much, even in the last year, because now pretty much everybody is so paranoid with the transfer portal still having a window in the spring. Everybody doesn't want to have a game, but want it to be televised. Alabama and Auburn are going more toward on April 12th. Each will have an open practice for the fans, maybe an autograph signing, things of that nature. All the scrimmages are going to be closed. Alabama had their first scrimmage this past Thursday, and they will have their next one on this coming Friday. And then, of course, the last one will be, on really, I think it's going to be maybe on Thursday also before A-Day. So A-Day will just be an hour and a half practice. So they're trying to keep things under wraps, and there won't be any television. So going to be really interesting to see if this stays that way. I still say if the transfer portal window in the spring is abolished, and I wouldn't be surprised if it is, if they move it to one window in January, pardon me, in the future we might see some of these games again, or at least maybe. Maybe they're not televised, but we might see them go to more of a game format. But I'll be honest with you, I don't know what your listeners are going to think of me saying this, but I have never been a huge fan of spring football games. I covered
No.
them. What amuses me the most is the overreaction when fans actually see something that's so scripted, where they're not going to show you much, and then they still take so much out of it. I don't really mind that there's not any spring games going on. Hugh Freeze has even said in our state he's all for NFL type OTAs and
Yeah.
even doing something in June. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens in the near future as well. So we'll see. But Alabama just had their first scrimmage, and there's some buzz coming out, and it's interesting because much like your Florida State Seminoles are going to look a lot different this coming year, very likely. Alabama, I think, certainly will, especially offensively.
Yeah. I remember two plays from spring games ever. Jameis from Hueytown there threw a touchdown on his very first pass, and we all said, holy crap. And it was like a 60-yard, and then I remember a running back, Kalen LeBourne, who, when he committed out of the opening in Oregon, committed in a Lambeau, right? And so there was a lot of buzz around him and hype and excitement. And he hit a hole and ran for like a 40-yard touchdown. And in the post-game interview, he said, I saw a wide A open hole, and I hit that B. And so those two, just kind of it wasn't even really the play. It was more so the interview. But those are the only two plays I ever remember in spring. Spring games are great for the fans. They're great for tailgates. They're great for drinking. They're great for getting good food again. It's just more of a hangout. But all right, let's do some hoops before we jump too far into football.
Right.
I think as we've been talking, Alabama just hit another 3-pointer, and I've been waiting all day to use that joke. But just an insane shooting night. Breaks a record for Sweet 16 points, breaks a record for tournament threes. It would probably be tough to replicate that, really, not just in the next potential 3 games, but for the next 20 years. But just a crazy, crazy night, a record-breaking night, a night in which I didn't even think BYU played that poorly. Like, I thought, against any other team, BYU probably walks out with a win or maybe a really close loss. But yeah, if Bama just plays kind of average, not average, but just kind of to their season, it was probably a close game with 5 minutes to go. Just thoughts on the game, and then I'll take it. It's not negative, but in a performance like that, like, do you worry about? I mean, there's obviously going to be a drop off from that. Do you worry that it was maybe almost too good, or like, is a performance like that enough to like have their confidence so sky high when they take on a really good Duke team tomorrow? Quickly, Bama fans or fans of any team that may be watching this, make sure that you are remembering Alumni Hall when you're gearing up for spring football or spring sports all over, whether that be an elite basketball team, a really good baseball team, a good softball team. No matter what sport or team you're supporting across Alabama athletics, make sure that you are doing so with gear and clothing from Alumni Hall. CFA 15, that's CFA for College Football Addiction, will save you 15% at Alumni Hall, either in store, located in the Huntsville or Tuscaloosa locations, or online at alumnihall.com. They have the best and largest selection of officially licensed game day gear, brands like Nike, Champion, New Era, Peter Millar, and more. Bama fans, Alumni Hall is your official shopping destination, and I appreciate their support on this video.
Look, basketball is a game of confidence, and you want it as high as you can get it going into a game with a Duke Blue Devil team that's one of the top 2 to 3 most talented in the country. Quite frankly, the best team I've seen this year is the Florida Gators. I have watched Duke, but I've thought all year after seeing Florida, especially live a couple of times, that Florida was the deeper, more talented team. But Duke is probably a close second. I'm anxious to see Alabama, though. I wanted in my bracket, I had this game. Now I had Duke winning it, but we'll see. I do think Alabama can beat Duke on any given day, especially with what we saw yesterday, which was the most unbelievable shooting, display I've ever seen a team have. I mean, I've been a college hoops nut for since I was a kid, TJ, and it brought me back to Loyola Marymount. I'd never seen another team shoot like that since the 1990 group that of course, I remember exactly where I was when Hank Gathers passed away. I saw it happen, which was so tragic. But Bo Kimball and Fryer and all those guys, still continued on and went on an Elite Eight run. I remember the way they blew out Michigan, and that's the game it reminded me of. Michigan was the defending national champions, under Steve Fisher, and they just got hammered. I think that's the game that where Loyola Marymount hit 21 threes. Well, Alabama hit 25 last night, 25 of 51. My good friend Nick Kelly, he's been on the show many times, of the Tuscaloosa News, formerly and now of AL.com. He came up with the stat of the night. This is pretty hard to believe. If you take away every 2-point basket Alabama made and just go with 3-pointers made and field and free throws, Alabama still beats BYU. That's that's just insane. I mean, and you're right. BYU under Kevin Young is a really good basketball team. He runs a really good system. Alabama just got hot in both halves, and especially in that second half. They just got to cooking, and the ball was moving. And Sears, after going 5 for 35 the last 5 or 6 games, he missed his first one. Then he makes 4 straight, and he stayed hot the rest of the game. He goes 10 for 16. Aiden Holloway, aka Biz, he hit 6. Chris Youngblood hit 5. They just had a very balanced attack, and anytime you shoot the ball like that, and this is going to sound funny, but I thought Alabama played good defense even though they gave up 88 because BYU is a really good 3-point shooting team. I think their philosophy, Alabama's plan, was to run BYU off the 3-point line, which they did because they made 6 out of 30, but most of them were when the game was well in hand. And so Alabama was able to defend the 3. And then BYU did finish at the rim some, but not consistently. And so Alabama got enough stops to win the game and do a hell of a job. And now they get a chance against to measure themselves against Duke. And in my opinion, I think it's going to be a great game because Nate Oates played the number 1 strength of schedule 4 games like this to prepare his team to play against a squad with the talent of the Duke Blue Devils. So, and Duke did not play as difficult to schedule, especially within their league, which wasn't very good. And so we'll see. Duke is still probably the favorite. I think I was kind of surprised it's up to 6.5 some places, 5.5. But I do think it's going to be a great game if Alabama. Now, do I expect them to make 25 threes? No. If they do, they'll beat the hell out of Duke. I don't care who they're playing. They'd beat Florida. But if they can shoot it well, be efficient, but the 2 biggest things they have to do against a team of Duke's caliber with their size, positional size, is they have to rebound. They can't get eviscerated on the glass by Duke, and then they have to take care of the basketball because Duke is just so talented and so big. But Alabama's not small at all either. So this is what they've kind of worked toward. Nate Oates has done an amazing job. Two straight Elite Eights, first time in school history, and then in 6 years, he's already won two SEC regular season titles, two SEC tournaments. He's been to, three Sweet 16s, two Elite Eights. I mean, it's just insane. I mean, what he's done to transform that basketball program is nothing short of astonishing. And let me correct myself, four Sweet 16s. But just what a run by him. And now the SEC has just become the most powerful basketball league in the country and in college basketball. And if Arkansas hadn't choked last night, they would have gotten three through. But I
Yeah.
thought Cal still did a great job with his team. And so right now, I think I like Florida's chances against Texas Tech, but it's going to be a heck of a game for Alabama. And we'll see if Auburn can stay alive tonight, along with Ole Miss, certainly in Tennessee and Kentucky. So you're going to get another SEC team in the Elite Eight. But right now, Alabama, I thought they were one of the eight best teams in the country. So I think they've made a hell of a run, but you got an opportunity to get back to San Antonio, back to a Final Four, and they're 28-8, and Nate Oates he's rightfully saying the goal is the Final Four each year, and they want to win a national title. So. And weirder things have happened. I think Florida and Duke are probably the two best teams, but as you know, in basketball, I wasn't expecting 25 threes last night. I was expecting a 95-84 type Bama win, and we saw a runaway. And so that Duke-Alabama game is going to be fascinating at about 7:50 Central Time, 8:50 your time tomorrow night.
Yeah, I remember watching a Lakers Celtics finals, and as a Lakers guy, I remember watching Ray Allen just go off. And I think at that time he set the record for threes in that game. I think it was game 2 of the year the Lakers won it. So the Lakers lost the game, but won the series. And yeah, he just went ballistic. And Alabama had like 6 guys do that last night. Like poor BYU, just what do you even at that point? You just kind of throw your hands up and say, "Hey, we'll be back next year." What you mentioned a couple of things that I want to ask about. With an expectation of making Final Fours and wanting to win a national title, making the Elite Eight several times, making the Sweet 16 several times. Do you think they embrace that underdog role? That like, hey, we just did this last night, and now everybody's picking Duke. Do you think that he sells that up, or is it more just like, hey man, continue to do what we're doing. Don't worry about the outside noise. Or do you think he does try and play into that? Hey, we're gonna go. Yeah, they think Duke's the team. We're gonna go show them.
Oh no, he does play it up. I mean, there were people, including their former head coach at Alabama, Avery Johnson, not great guy, average coach. I mean, I had a great relationship with him covering him, but he wasn't a very good basketball coach. But he picked St. Mary's. There was a lot of people that were, and Nate Oates played that up. They had a video spliced together where Alabama was being called soft. St. Mary's is too big. That they're with their style of play, it's going to be tough for Alabama. And I quite frankly, TJ, I thought that effort against St. Mary's was one of the best of their season, maybe the best as far as when you combine offense, defense, and all the intangible things you do, the playing with toughness, because Randy Bennett is underrated completely. He had beat Gonzaga twice. They were 29-5. It was one of his better teams at St. Mary's. And I thought Alabama did a great job of winning that game 80-66. It wasn't the shooting performance and the offensive annihilation we saw of BYU, but it was a really good win. And don't forget, before BYU came to the Big 12, they were in the West Coast Conference in everything but football. So I just think overall Alabama's played really well the last 2 weeks, and I'm sure in the small time to prepare in the interim, he's going to see everybody picking Duke, and he's going to play it up. Like, guys, they don't think you have a chance against this team. They think Duke's going to win the national championship. They're the favorite. Well, let's go, show them how good we are. And so I think Nate Oates he's a great tactician. He's an outstanding basketball coach and communicator, but I think he's also a great motivator. And so certainly John Shire's done a great job. And it's kind of funny. We're about to talk football, but the Duke situation is a lot like Alabama football. Coach K retires 3 years ago. John Shire takes over, former player there, and he goes in the first year he wins the ACC tournament but loses to Tennessee in the round of 32. So everybody's a little irritated. Last year he goes to the Elite Eight, falls short. He hadn't been to the Final Four, so they want him to go back to the Final Four. They haven't won a national championship since 2015 when they beat Wisconsin. So who upset, don't forget, an undefeated Kentucky team. That John Calipari was trying to make they were trying to make history and be the first undefeated team since the '76 Indiana Hoosiers. So, but again, I think Alabama fans have got to they're ecstatic right now. And the great thing is, Greg Burns an amazing athletic director. He's given Nate Oates everything he wants because Nate Oates could have been a candidate at Texas. He did not want to go for the second time. He could have gone to Kentucky last year. Alabama has given him everything he wants, and so he thinks he can win a national championship at the capstone. And Alabama does have a rich basketball history. Now, they went from about a 25, 30-year period where they weren't competing as far as they were getting into the tournament every now and then, but they weren't making deep runs like they did under CM Newton and Wimp Sanderson. Nate Oates has kind of rekindled that, and he's kind of ignited the fan base. And it's kind of crazy because Auburn's done the same thing with Bruce Pearl. I mean, this is by far the golden era of Auburn basketball. So it's right now, the state of Alabama is a hoop state. There's so much good college basketball on the mid-major level with Samford and Bucky McMillan and Andy Kennedy, what he's doing at UAB. And there's just Scott Cross at Troy. They made the NCAA tournament. There's Jack State. So much good basketball going on in our state on the junior college level, even on Division II, UAH here in my backyard. So it's a great time to be a hoop fan. And in North Alabama, where I'm located, we're considered kind of the hub of basketball in the state. So we're super excited.
Yeah, we'll go to football here, but I will. I know you said you picked Duke in your bracket, but give me a prediction for this one on Saturday. I think predicting hoops is like the worst. Football, I feel like is easy, but predicting hoops is so hard. But give me a prediction on this one.
Well, the funny thing is, with Alabama, I always give a watermark for points if they're going to win. I gave 85 for Robert Morris. It ended up being 90. It was a little bit hairier than it needed to be. I hit it on the head with St. Mary's 80 because of the pace of play. I was a little under last night. I said 95 against BYU. Now, with the Blue Devils, if Alabama's going to win this game, Duke scored 100 last night, against Arizona. So I think it would have to be in the 90s. I would say if Bama's going to win this game, it'd have to be a 94-88 type game. It'd have to be a high-scoring, up-and-down contest, kind of dictate the pace to Duke. But if Duke wins it, and I did pick Duke to win it, it would have to be maybe an 85-78 type deal. I still think it would be pretty high-scoring, but Duke would be long enough and athletic enough to get the stops to deny Alabama. So that's the way I guess I'll pick it. If the Blue Devils win it, I think they control the glass. They turn Alabama over some, and then are able to keep Alabama at arm's length and win 85-78. If Alabama makes 10-plus threes, continues to shoot the ball well, takes care of the rock, and then and can out-rebound Duke, then I think they can have 80-plus possessions, and they can beat Duke in a high-level 94-88 type game like we saw when they beat Auburn in overtime in Neville Arena at the buzzer. That was a very high-level game. It was a high-possession game, and Alabama played from out in front and took it to Auburn and jumped on them. And that's what they're going to have to do against Duke because Duke is the best, one of the two best teams in the country, in my opinion, and it's going to be very difficult to fight uphill against them. Yeah. And one thing Alabama's going to have to do as well, and they did it in the second half yesterday. Look, man, the officials are going to make some calls. They may even change the style of the way they're calling in the middle of the game. You just got to play through it. You got to play through it. You got to play with a lot of toughness. You got to play with a lot of fortitude, and you can't back down. You have to. You got to show Duke if you're there. You're there to play. You're there to get to the Final Four. And I never thought I'd say this in my lifetime. Alabama has more Final Four experience on their team than the Duke Blue Devils because they have since Coach K's final year, which was 4 years ago, when they lost to Carolina in the Final Four in the semis. So we'll see. But I do think that Alabama has more than a puncher's chance. But that's the way I'll go. I mean, if Duke wins it, it's going to be, I think, around the point spread, 85-78. Won't quite be the pace Alabama wants. But if the Tide wins, it's got to be played in the 90s.
Alabama fans, this wasn't our only content with Drew. We have other segments that are either dropping or have dropped. So do me a favor, hit the subscribe button right now. Subscribe also on audio podcasts. You can listen to the entire interview in one sitting. And then stay tuned for more coming with Drew very soon.